everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is Nikki of the Professor Knits. Happy Easter if you celebrate it. Easter was last weekend and I'm just relaxing after a very busy weekend. And this week has been a bit of an interesting week at work. I have a little bit of extra time, so I'm trying to get some side projects done, and I thought I would have a quick little podcast to show you all of my finished objects. I've been on a bit of a finished working in progress kick, and so I will be talking mostly about that today. I only have one work in progress to show you, but we'll get to that right away. So what's new with me? Not a whole lot. Like I said, we just got through Easter, and I've been feeling a little down in the dumps lately. The fire at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris really bothered me, as it did most of the world. And I think it's been particularly upsetting for a lot of us medieval historians, because Notre Dame Cathedral really represents it touches upon just about every facet of medieval history, whether you're an art historian, art or architecture, intellectual historian, theological or religious historian, social, economic, material culture. I mean, Notre Dame is one of the most important material cultural artifacts from the Middle Ages that it's not the most important, but it touches on just about every aspect of medieval history. So it's been a bit of a hard time to deal with the ramifications of the loss of a lot of the artwork and so forth that was in the building, but also being so relieved that nobody got killed, and remembering that it is a structure and human life is much more important. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks since that news broke, but I'm feeling a lot better about it now, especially since the stained glass rose windows were saved, and that was a pretty important moment when I found that out. Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about some knitting. I have several finished objects, and because I am so old and distracted and my brain just isn't what it used to be, I'm looking up on my project page in Ravelry to remind myself of the names of these patterns and the designers and the yarn, simply because I've been, I'm not very prepared. I didn't think to do it in advance, so I have my computer here. So the first one I'm going to show you is something that I finished for my daughter, and that is the Sesse tunic by Signe Stromgard, and I've shown it in previous episodes, but it's completed. Isn't it adorable? I don't have a picture of my daughter in it yet. She's only worn it once. She wore it the day after I completed it because she was so excited, but now she's forgotten about it. She's 3. So she doesn't have the greatest attention span. So I think what I'm going to do is put it away now until winter. If I can get her clean for more than 5 seconds and not have her hair a ridiculous mess for more than 5 seconds, I'll get her to wear it and snap a picture of her and post it on Instagram. But I don't have one yet. My daughter she's pretty hilarious. And she's just always a hot mess. She's always like covered in something. She's a bit of a tomboy, but she's also a girly girl. But because she has an older brother, she's also a bit of a tomboy. And she's always covered in something. And her hair is very much like mine was at that age. It's very fine. And all she has to do is like lay her head down gently on a pillow and then like pick it up, and it's like a matted mess. And that's the way her brother was too when he was younger. And it's the way my hair was. Like, it was always bedhead, but more than that, it was like, it looked just like I hadn't combed it for 3 weeks or something like that. But that's the way her hair looks pretty much all the time. So she's pretty hilarious, but she's adorable. She's a handful. But I'll snap a picture of her in it one of these days, and you can see how cute she is. Now, I highly recommend this pattern. It was really easy to knit, easy to memorize. I had the pattern with me all the time, but I rarely had to consult it. And it's just made up of these beautiful little lollipop patterns. So you have the stockinette stitch is the right side, or pardon me, garter stitch is the right side, which is normally the wrong side. And then these little stockinette stitch, I guess is this reverse stockinette? I don't know. Sort of, they look like lollipops to me. With the little lollipops, and I just adore it. It was such a quick and easy knit, and I highly suggest it if you don't knit a lot of garments and you're not too sure. Start with something like this because the pattern is so easy. There's no short row shaping or anything like that. It's just decreases once you get to the yoke, and when you bind off for the sleeves, you don't have to go back and knit any sleeves. Like it's just, you just keep going in the pattern, and you when you're done, you're done. So it's knit seamlessly in one big piece. And it's just a really, really adorable, cute little sweater, and it ended up fitting her perfectly. I thought it was going to be too big. Ended up fitting her perfectly. Love it. Can't say enough about it. I'm going to move on to the next tunic for her in the same book by Signe Stromgaard, her Knits for Little Scamps Volume 2. I'm going to go on and knit another tunic that I like, as you know, soon, like within the next week or so. The yarn is my own yarn, Medusa yarn and fiber, my soft pink, or just a pink colorway, and my DK weight yarn, 100% superwash merino DK weight yarn, and I really enjoyed knitting it. It was a really nice combination. So it's a cozy sweater without being too heavy. So she just loves it. I love that she loves it, and I loved knitting it. I'll knit more probably as she gets older. I'll knit her more if she wants them. Although I will say this pattern is little girlish, right? I can't imagine her wanting this kind of a tunic when she's like 8 or something like that because of the pattern, but who knows? And it depends on the yarn too. Maybe a rustic yarn would look a little bit different. So that's my first finished object. My another finished object is what I knitted for my son. And this was the, hold on, I gotta look it up. I'll probably just edit this part out. The Purple Monster Minion Hat by Connie Hughes. There's the hat. And wait for it, the goggles. They're removable. So again, he had waited for it so patiently, couldn't wait until I finished, and promptly played with it nonstop for about a day, and then has promptly forgotten about it. Now this looks whacked, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So it's a crochet, mostly just double and half double crochet, crochet hat. The purple is my own yarn, Medusa yarn and fiber, in a purple one-of-a-kind colorway. I think I might have another skein of it kicking around, I don't know. But it's my 25% nylon, 75% superwash merino Titans base, and fingering weight, and I just held it double to get worsted weight because it was the perfect shade of purple. And all of the rest is just scrap yarn I had, the white, the gray, just scrap yarn that I used up, so I don't really remember what it is anymore. And I thought I was going to be clever when I was making the goggles, that I was going to just use elastics so that my son could take it on and off and have it stay on when he wanted it. And the only problem with this is that because it's a little tight, it pulls it to make it look kind of slanted. right? And that's not, it kind of loses the effect of the big goggles, because the Minions, it's all about their big goggles. That's what really, it's part of their character, are those big goggles. So I think I might, maybe this winter, if he shows interest in again, I might take the elastic off and just do a regular crocheted headband for it. Now I'm gonna say, as cute as this hat is, and as great as the pattern is, because it's a very well written, good pattern, I didn't particularly enjoy crocheting it, simply because there were so many tiny little pieces that you had to crochet and put all the way back together. So once I was done with the hat, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus the button eyes that I had to crochet and then sew together, all assembly. And then of course these, the goggles. And I don't have a lot of patience for that kind of thing. But like I said, like, this isn't a criticism of, you know, the pattern or anything like that. It was fun, but I'm in no rush to do it again. And if either of my kids ever ask for another hat, I'm going to look very carefully before I start to make sure there's not a lot of assembly required. But it's worth the effort, I guess, because of the depth and texture it gives it. Like, if this was just a knit hat where you knitted by changing colors and knitted the look of the eyes and the teeth and all that, it just wouldn't be as good. It would look store-bought. So this, you can really tell it's handmade with a lot of love and care, but just not what I enjoy doing. I don't really enjoy spending my time. And then the hair part, doing one at a time, there should be way more hair, and it should be kind of a thick, but I was done, you know, and he wanted to wear it so badly, and I didn't want to fiddle around with little pieces of yarn anymore. So I called it done. He loves it, but has promptly forgotten about it. He's 6, so his attention span is a little bit better than his sister's, but it's still pretty short. So Connie Hughes, Purple Monster Minion hat. Minion purple monster hat. Some combination of that. But I'm pretty proud of myself. That's the first time I've ever crocheted something like that. So it was a lot of fun, I guess. What else do I have? I have 3 really old whips that I'm going to talk about. The first is a pair of mittens that I just finished. Aren't those pretty? I love the color combination. And this is this was from the Meboden pattern from Skein-Deer Knits. So if you watch a lot of podcasts and you like to do colored stranded knitting, it's pretty hard not to have come across Skein-Deer Knits. She's the Norwegian podcaster and also now a designer. And so she did a Selbu Mitten Club, which is a kind of Norwegian stranded knitting mitten pattern, last year, and I bought all of the patterns that were in the club, and I've been slowly knitting them. And this is the Meboden, and I've done it a couple times. Wait, no, it's not. This is not the Meboden. This is the Selbu. Pardon me, I'm sorry. This is the Selbu mitten from the Selbu Mitten Club by Skein-Deer Knits. And I love doing these mitts. I find that I have to go up quite a bit in the needle size for them to fit me. So for example, this is knit in a DK weight, and I'll talk about the yarn in just a second, and I followed her instructions, and I mean, they're snug. They fit, but they're pretty snug. I had to block the shit out of them to get them to fit. And so I find that it's very hard to get the left hand on if I'm wearing my wedding engagement ring. The wedding band isn't bad, but the engagement ring, because of the size of the diamond. Just kidding. Very much just kidding. It's harder to get on. It's harder to get on, so as you can see. But I absolutely love these mitts. And I often give mitts like these as gifts, and people always love them. So the Selboon mitts, for part of the Selboon Mitten Club by Skein-Deer Knits. The yarn is, the purple is Rowan felted tweed in the DK weight, because I have a lot of it, and I'll show you the sweater I knit with it in a different podcast. I have a lot of finished objects to get caught up on showing you over the next few episodes. But the purple is Rowan felted tweed DK weight, and the gold color, if you can see, was a DK weight yarn I had picked up when I was in Leeds in Northern England a couple years ago by the Mulberry dyer. She was there at the conference. It's a conference for medievalists, and she had dyed the yarn naturally using medieval methods, the way medieval peasants would have dyed their wool. And the breed was the Wensleydale breed, 100% Wensleydale wool. And it's a nice rustic wool. I really enjoyed working with it. I love the color. It's called Tansy. And I just had a very small skein of it, but I have a little bit left. I actually might even be able to get maybe a pair of matching mittens, like a smaller pair for my daughter. We'll see. But I just really love the combination of this goldish yellow color with the purple. It looks very royal and regal. So instead of the recommended needle, I think of 5 and 6, US sizes 5 and 6, I do 6 and 7 to get a little bit of a bigger fit. Or did I do 5 and 6 for this? Honestly, I don't remember. I had them done quite some time ago, except for the thumbs. I only needed to do the thumbs, and I just finished up the thumbs, and I just used a size 6 needle because I couldn't remember what I had done, but I knew it would have been somewhere between 5 and 7. I need to keep better notes on my Ravelry page. And I have to stop doing this. I have to stop knitting mitts and then setting them aside and not finishing the thumbs, because inevitably, and this happened here, I somehow, because I've lost the flow of the pattern, when I go to pick up to do the thumb, I always make silly mistakes in the pattern, and it's just not as nice, as you can see. But otherwise, I'm very pleased with these mitts. This yarn is quite rustic, and there's a really nice fuzzy halo effect on them, which I think is very cozy and very pretty. I think I'll keep them for myself. I don't know yet. I have a colleague who always comments on my knitting, and she has mentioned something about me teaching her how to knit and how she really wanted to learn how to knit mitts like this. So maybe I'll give her a pair to sort of get her inspired. We'll see. Yeah. Selboon Mittens by Skein-Deer Knits. Now, speaking of Skein-Deer Knits, I'll show you the one work in progress that I'm working on right now, which is the exact same club, but this is the Mabodin knitting, the Mabodin pattern that I've been working on. So as you can see, slightly different pattern. These are my two favorite. I think there's 5 patterns in her club, and these are my 2 favorites. Very similar, but also quite different. Now this one, I am knitting using leftover yarn from when I did the Wintersol sweater by Jennifer Steingass. And this yarn, I think I've got, yeah, it is the Holst garn, the Danish yarn that is amazing. It's so affordable. It's so fun to work with if you like a rustic wool. And this is the super soft, excuse me, which is 100% wool. And I'm holding it double to get a worsted weight sort of light worsted weight, heavy DK weight. And this is just the leftover yarn I had. So here's the silver gray, and I'm also, the darker gray is the slate gray. And I think I had ended up with 1 or 2 of each ball left. And I have a lot of the marine color. If you remember my Wintersol sweater, it was blue, kind of like a marine-y aqua blue, and then these 2 grays. I have so much yarn left over. I'm telling you, if you like working with rustic wool and you haven't tried this yarn yet, do it. Go to their website, Holst Garn, and you're not going to believe how affordable it is. I think for all the sweater quantity that I ordered, plus I can make probably another small sweater for my daughter, if not another sweater for me. Well, not now that I'm using this up in the mitts, but if I hadn't done that, I think all in with shipping, which came in less than a week from Denmark, I think all in it was less than $50. And it's really, really nice yarn. Very rustic, but not itchy. I do wear a t-shirt when underneath sweaters that are knit with rustic yarn, because I can get a very irritated neck, but for the most part it doesn't bother me at all. All right, so this particular pattern I love with this yarn because the stitch definition, I mean, these have not been washed and blocked yet. I still have to do the thumb on this one, and I'm currently knitting the other hand. I'm currently knitting the right hand. So here's the left hand, here's the right hand. And when I'm done, I'm going to immediately do the thumbs so I don't lose the rhythm of the pattern. I just cannot believe the stitch definition. If you compare to this yarn, these have been washed and blocked, but it's a very soft yarn. These are very soft yarns. This, it's so structured. It's perfect for doing these Selbu mittens. So this is the Maboden pattern. Again, can't get it on. There we go. This I've knit with larger needles. The cuff just at the very beginning was done with size 6. Everything else is done with size 7 US needles, and it's the perfect fit on my hand. This one's a little snug. This one's perfect. I love it. Couldn't be happier. So I'll definitely be ordering more yarn from them in the future, even if it's just to do mitts. And you can tell it's a yarn that is gonna stand the test of time as a hard-wearing mitt. Oh, and what I love about these mitts, and all of the patterns in the club are like this, is they've got a nice long cuff, right? So you don't get a chilly wrist, and it goes up nice underneath your sweater or jacket. And that's the only work in progress I'm going to show you guys today, because I am on a monogamous, one project at a time mission to clean up all of my whips, all of them. That's all I'm doing right now. I'm not letting myself start any other projects until all of my whips are done. And I'm getting there. After this, after these mitts are done, I'm gonna have a tank top, a linen tank top that I started last summer and never finished, so that won't take long. My Stephen West sweater, which might take a while. That one I'm working on as soon as I have scrap yarn. And then the Jones cardigan that I started for my husband like 3 years ago. I don't know. I think after I finish these and the tank top, I'll allow myself to start other projects. Oh, I almost forgot to mention the project bag. I love this project bag, and the fact that the yarn that the project matches is just a coincidence, the two-tone grays. This project bag is awesome. It's black and white, grays, lots of different blacks and whites and grays, with these skulls and roses everywhere on it. And this is by Twisted Yarn and Fiber, Wanda over at Twisted Yarn and Fiber. And I've had the pleasure of vending with her at different shows, and we're always next to each other. I guess maybe it's only been 2 shows that we've vended next to each other. I can't remember anymore, but we're always very close to each other, so we've gotten to know each other, and we chit-chat, and we shop in each other's booths or do swaps. And I really like her bags. I think I have 2 or 3 of her bags at this point. And I'll show you the other ones as I'm knitting with them. But I really like the quality of her bags, and I really like, she has very edgy, beautiful fabrics. I just really like the way she does her bags. They've always got the carrying handle, high quality stitching. Her mom is really nice. I don't remember her name, but her mom is always there with her, helping her, and they're just really nice ladies, and I always enjoy seeing them. So hop on over. I think she's got an Etsy shop. I'll put the information on the screen. But her name is Wanda over at Twisted Yarn and Fiber. And what's funny is because I think she's from Georgia, but the first time I met her, she was situated next to Twist Fiber Studio, who's out of Brevard, I think, North Carolina. So that was weird that they had such similar names. Fortunately, very dissimilar products. But it was just kind of funny. Maybe they didn't find it too funny, but I did. Cute little flower for her logo. All right, into the archives we go. I would like to show you guys a couple of projects that I finished a long time ago. I'll show you 2 today, and of course, it's all with my own yarn because I was trying to knit up as many samples as possible. Now, the first one I'm going to show you, I don't care a whole lot for because I just wanted to contrast. I mean, I love the pattern. It's Nurmalintu, which is a free pattern on Ravelry. And I think a lot of people have knitted the Nurmalintu. Who is the... Oh, do I even... I don't even... Oh, there it is. Sample Nurmalintu. By Heidi Allender. A lot of people have knitted it. It's free, and it's a great pattern. And what I decided to do is knit it in 2 contrasting colors to show sort of a color blocking technique. The gray is, that's a very dark gray, and it's the asphalt colorway, which I've also sold as Hades. I haven't decided which color yet, but they're almost identical. And then Buttercup. And the Buttercup, both of them are in fingering weight. The Buttercup is in a gold stellina base, my Astra base, which is your typical 75, 20 nylon, and then 5 stellina. And the gray is in the Titan's base, so 75, 25. And I like the colors, and but I feel like the beautiful pattern doesn't really come out because of the color blocking. Had it been more of a gradiated or not marled, if I had done that maybe with them, with the 2, it might have really showcased the pattern a little better. I just feel like I like the pattern. I love the pattern. I love the yarn. I love the yarn combination. I just don't think it all came together. But I still display it at shows just to show what my yarn looks like knitted up and how these 2 colors complement each other so well. And I love a good asymmetrical shawl. That's my style. And this is nice. This size is really good because a 1 skein shawl can be a little small depending on, I like it for spring and summer or fall when you don't want much. A 2 skein, this isn't quite 2 skein, but it's definitely bigger than a 1 skein shawl. You get it's still nice and lightweight and small, but you get a little bit of extra fabric or material to wrap around your neck. So I really enjoyed it, and I don't wear it a whole lot. It's more so just for shows. But who knows? The more I look at it, the prettier I think it is. We'll see. The other one I want to show you is the Night Shift Cowl by Andrea Mowry. Now this one, I still don't know how I feel about it. I thought I would love it because, let's face it, you look at anything that Andrea Mowry has designed and you look at her modeling it and you think, wow, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I must knit that. And her patterns are beautiful. But she looks good in just about, like she would make a paper bag look good. Like I get deceived every time I see a picture of her and I think, oh my goodness, if I knit that, I'll look like that. That's how it'll look on me. Not quite how it works out. The girl is stunning, like let's just face it. And she can wear anything. So, number one, it didn't quite come off as nice, I don't think. I don't know. Well, actually, it's not. I like it. I do. I don't know. I guess I just can't decide how to wear it. I don't know. Anyways, it was a fun, interesting design. I liked the structure of it, but I guess, like I said, I had something else. I expected to look like her, and I don't, and it bothers me. But it was a really interesting pattern, and she had created it for Spin Cycle yarns. And I think this is an example of when you should really use the yarn it was created for. I think that would have made a big difference if I had used Spin Cycle yarns instead of my own. I think maybe it would have just had a bit of a different feel to it because of the way that Spin Cycle, it looks hand spun, the way that they mill spin their yarn. Anyway, I can't afford all that much of Spin Cycle's yarn because it's so expensive. And for any other project, a small cowl, I could. Well, it's not that I can't afford it, I just would choose not to, probably, especially since I have all my own yarn and I have my own hand spun yarn too. I don't know, like I don't want to sound like I'm being critical or anything like that. Beautiful yarn, but this pattern, because of the slip stitch way in which you come up with this, it's not color work, it's a series of slip stitching. So you end up knitting each row twice. So it uses up, for the size of it, it uses up a lot of yarn. This used up almost 3 full skeins of worsted weight yarn. In fact, I think it did use up all 3 skeins. So that's a lot for such a small project. And so had I gone, and what's nice too is that it makes it almost reversible. But had I gone with a Spin Cycle, it would have probably been well over $100. And I will spend $100 on a sweater's quantity of yarn, but probably not for a shawl or a cowl. Although I shouldn't say that, I did do that recently at Hook and Needle, but it was cashmere, so that's different. When it's cashmere, it's different. I'll show you that yarn when I show you the project I'm knitting. I'm gonna knit with it. Anyhow, 3 different colors in this really interesting pattern. Buttercup again, this time in my worsted weight, 100% superwash merino worsted weight. And then just a couple of different purples that I had when I was practicing with making a gradient set. So I don't have these named or anything, they're just a couple of purple ones that I had left over. So a nice light purple and then a darker purple. Because I guess I kind of like purple and yellow together. Are you seeing a theme today? Purple and yellow. Yeah. So that's my archived work in progress. And what's sad is that I haven't worn it yet. I've trotted it out, I've blocked it, I've looked at it, I've tried it, but I still haven't worn it. I gotta Now I just spotted a mistake. Huh. Anyway, I guess I should maybe stop rambling about this for now. But the very talented Andrea Mowry, very beautiful, can wear a paper sack and makes all of her knitted garments look amazing. And you'd think at my age, I would already know that that's how things work, right? When you see a supermodel in a magazine, that's not actually how they look. So to think that you're going to look like them by using those products is just silly, but advertisers count on us believing that. But I guess because Andrea Mowry is a real person that a lot of us have met, I haven't, but a lot of knitters have met, and that those are not doctored up photos, those are photos that her husband takes. Anyways, if it sounds like I have a crazy crush on her, I don't. I just think she's beautiful. Okay, so if you're just here for the knitting, then you might not be all that interested in this next segment. But what I thought I would do today, because of the season, because even though we've had Easter Sunday, the actual Easter season continues on for several more weeks until the end of, I can't remember what the Sunday is called when Easter ends. I know it, but I just can't remember it off the top of my head. So it's still technically the Easter season. The Orthodox Church hasn't had Easter yet. That's coming up on Monday. So keeping in mind with the Easter spirit, I thought I would show you one of my favorite art and crafts that I do that I don't do a whole lot of because it's time consuming. And that is the ancient Eastern European art of Pysanky on eggs. So what this is it's a real egg, that raw egg that I blew out. So I poke a hole on the top and a hole on the bottom, and I painstakingly, without crushing it, blow out and then clean out the egg, let it dry. And then what this is, it's not painted, but it's dyed using a combination of wax and dyes. So for example, if you start with a plain white egg, and then you can see on this egg, anywhere where there's a white, which is a kind of all over, right? Anywhere where you see a white line or decoration would have been the very first thing I would have covered up. Okay, so look at that white flower. That means that I covered those areas that are white with beeswax using a tool called a kitska. And there you can see all the lines. It's painstaking, it's slow, but I love it. And then what I would have done is, once everything that I want to be white was covered in beeswax, you dip it in a dye. The first dye being yellow. Like there's a color sequence that you follow. And then the egg would be completely yellow. And then I would go through with the beeswax again, and anything that you see that's yellow would have been covered with beeswax. And then I dip it into the next dye, which would have been, I guess, red. And then, or I would have washed back, then I washed back the yellow off of the egg, and then dip it in red because you don't want it to turn orange yet. I can't remember the sequence that I did, but anyways, you get the point. Every time you dip the egg into a dye, it turns a certain color, and then if you want to keep that color, you cover it with beeswax in any sort of pattern, so on and so forth, until you get all the way to black. And then you dip it in black, and whatever parts of the egg are still exposed is black. And then, see, here's an example of just two colors. So what I would have done is I would have taken a white egg, I dyed it blue, and this I did years and years ago. I don't quite remember. It was one of the first ones I did when I got back into this art. I dyed it blue, and then I just did a whole bunch of designs on it with beeswax, dyed it black, and then I was done. And then what you do to get all the beeswax off is you heat it up very gently and wipe it off, and then lacquer it to give it that shine. Isn't that beautiful? It's so fun. So a couple of the early ones are two-tone eggs. This one, I don't know. I just love how it turned out. I did this years and years ago. And they're very fragile, right? They're empty, raw eggs. You can see the hole that I blew out there. Okay, so it's two. I don't have that many. This was an early one too. That's kind of ugly. And you can tell I don't have a very steady hand. This one. And the designs on them are all very traditional. And a lot of Eastern European countries do this. The one that I was taught by were Ukrainians. I'm not Ukrainian, but I was raised, I grew up in a part of Manitoba, up in Canada, isn't that neat? That had a lot, and still does, has a lot of Ukrainians, a lot of Ukrainian communities. So I grew up with and my one of my aunts married a Ukrainian man, and she became, because this is what they used to do back then, right? Women would submerge themselves in their husband's culture. So she learned how to cook halapchis and pierogies and all that kind of stuff, all these delicious Ukrainian foods. And we would always be at their house for whatever event. I forgot how much I liked that egg. This one I think I did a couple years ago. Isn't that gorgeous? And that included, you know, Pysanky, which was this art decoration. So I feel like I always did it, but I went through periods of time, like I learned how as a young girl, and I think we used to do it in school or in community centers. And as a young girl, I loved it. And then I didn't do it for years and years and years as an adult. And then I picked it up again about 10 years ago. That's kind of a cute one I did. And I try to do it as much as I can, but because it's painstaking, it's slow. And oh, I love that one. And you can put in hours and hours of work only to accidentally smash it or drop it. It can be devastating too. And this one, which is the one I started out with. I think this is one of the ones I was most proud of. Now, none of these are from this year. The ones I'm working on this year aren't finished yet. And, and I have one more, but I didn't do this one. Somebody gave it to my mom, and my mom has no respect or value for the hard work that this went into. But some woman gave it to her, and my mom was like, oh, okay, here, you can have it. My daughter does this, and she gave it to me. But you can tell this woman doesn't use high quality tools or dyes. It's all very, it's all very faded. So she's probably using food coloring or just a fabric dye or yarn dye that she picks up in a craft store. To get the really vibrant, proper colors like this that don't fade, you need to get special aniline dyes from a supplier, and they're hard to find in art and craft stores. It's kind of like dyeing yarn. You can't just find an acid dye necessarily any old place. But anyway, I just adore doing it. So if anybody's interested, I can, what I plan to do is making some videos on how to do it and posting them. I'll link them to here. Maybe I'll include them here, but it'll kind of be a side craft that's part of my podcast. Good Lord, the more I look at this one, the more I'm pleased with my work. I had stopped doing it again in recent years because with my kids being so young, it's a very inconvenient craft to do, right? It's fragile. You need a lot of peace and quiet because you have a candle going, you have hot wax, you've got dyes, you've got a fragile egg in your hand. You kind of have to, it's got to be quiet, you got to be alone, and you can't have grubby little 3-year-old fingers who want to touch everything you do around. So it's not a portable craft. It's not an easy pick up and do a little bit and put it down kind of craft. You kind of have to set it aside a couple of hours to work on it every time you want to work on it. But it's so addictive, and it's so rewarding. And I think that, I'm trying to remember, this egg, if I recall, I did it about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. I think it was before Amadeo was born. And Oscar was sleeping one night, and my husband was out of town, and I opened up a bottle of wine, which you really shouldn't do with this, but I did it anyway. And I think from beginning to end, I did it in one night, and it was about 4, maybe 5 hours. So I feel like I was surprised, considering how intricate the detailing is, that I got it done in one night. It usually doesn't happen that way for something that intricate. And if you want to see something that will blow your mind, just go and look on the internet at what some of the people do. If you look under Pysanky artists, it's just amazing. Egg art is kind of one of those weird things that's very old-fashioned. It's been around for a long time. And I think that it kind of comes and goes out of fashion and can seem like an old person's craft, but so is knitting, right? I think, I sometimes have to wonder if there's an 85-year-old woman dying to get out of my body, because I gravitate towards crafts that are traditionally associated with old ladies, like egg art and knitting and sewing. I got into jewelry making for a while, but it's just not that rewarding, and the jewelry I find that I can buy the equivalent that's way better quality than anything I could make for a fraction of the cost and time. So I don't do a whole lot of jewelry making anymore, but I just can get addicted to almost any craft. But I'm gonna get back into the Pysanky and find the old Ukrainian Baba living deep inside my heart. Okay, I think I've rambled on quite enough for today. I will be back hopefully in a week or two with more works in progress, maybe some finished eggs, we'll see. And if you're interested in seeing some videos of how this is done, let me know in the comments, and I will include some next time. Have a good day, and if you're Greek or Eastern Orthodox of any sort, happy Easter, because it hasn't happened for you yet. So take care. Thanks for watching.